G'day and welcome back to another blog, general rant and rave thing as I usually do. A lot of people have been emailing me in the last 24 hours or so saying, did you see a drone hit an airliner? Airliner hit a drone in the little village of Canada, just north of America. And ooh, how bad is that? Well, this is interesting because I saw a Reuters report that says a drone hit an airliner. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, we heard that before. There was one, didn't a drone hit an airliner landing at Heathrow? It turned out to be a plastic bag. So I don't believe any of these reports until I see some evidence. Now, in the case of the Black Hawk helicopter, we saw pictures. We saw a Phantom 4 arm, just a motor, and we saw damage to a rotor blade and dents in the side of the helicopter. So yeah, that was compelling evidence. And also it was military, so the pilots there probably didn't have as much to gain by hyping something up that didn't happen, because note that the Commercial Airlines Pilots Union are so against drones. There's like here in New Zealand, in Australia, in America, everywhere around the world, the airline pilots associations are the ones who are standing up and going, these drones will kill us all because they'll crash into our flimsy little aeroplanes, smash through the cockpit window and kill the cabin crew, and we'll all die in flames falling from the sky. I mean, okay, I exaggerated, but that's pretty much what they're trying to tell us. So I don't believe yet that it was a reported incident, but was it really a drone hitting an aircraft? I mean, they were at 450 metres on approach somewhere. How do they know it was a drone? I mean, those things happen so quickly. An airliner, you don't have time to see anything out the front window. It's gone, it's gone. So did they see it was a drone? How do they know it was a drone? What colour was it? What size was it? How many propellers did it have? None of those questions were answered. So I have a feeling they didn't see a damn thing. They probably heard a noise, maybe even felt something, but was it a drone? Was it a bird? Was it a plastic bag? Was it a falling meteor? We don't know. So there's just not enough evidence to say, oh, drone collides with airliner. But for a moment, let's assume that it happened. Let's assume that an airliner did hit a drone or vice versa. What are we going to learn from this? Well, pretty much the same as from the Black Hawk incident. Firstly, it happened at 450 metres. And in the little village of Canada, you're only allowed to fly up to 90 metres. So the drone operator, if this happened, he was breaking the rules. He was breaking the rules quite significantly by flying at 450 metres. So when the inevitable call comes for tighter drone regulations, tougher punishments, would that have saved, if there were tighter regulations, would that have prevented this incident? If the Canadian, Transport Canada had said, we're only going to let you fly your drones to 10 metres, would that have saved that plane from having a collision? No, because the guy was already 450 metres. It was over 460 metres above where he should have been. Sorry, 360 metres higher than he should have been. So he wasn't listening to the rules. He either didn't know the rules were there or he just chose to break them. So stronger rules, nah, I'm not going to make any difference. Only going to penalise the people who are law-abiding. And they aren't the problem. So yeah, but the other thing is, if this airliner did strike a drone, and I think the news report said there was minor damage. It didn't say what sort of minor damage, just minor damage. Well, hang on a minute, you know, that helicopter was just lucky. It was just lucky that the drone happened to hit a military helicopter, which is hardened to those things, and it just happened to strike a bit that wasn't vulnerable. But surely if an airliner and a drone collide, this is it. This is the cataclysm, this is the catastrophe that the media has been warning us about. No, nothing happened. No one was injured. The plane was barely damaged apparently. So what happened to all these predictions of doom and disaster? Hey, another point for the people who say, you guys are out of your tree, you're full of hype. There's no evidence to support your ridiculous claims that these drones are so dangerous or as dangerous as you say they are. So another point for the model flyers, for the drone operators, if there have been 2 collisions and only minor damage in each case, now we have 2 data points. Because when I did my last video about the drone colliding with the helicopter, a lot of people piped up and said, oh, you can't draw these conclusions on one single data point. And my response to that was, well, why not? 1 is infinitely more than 0. So we have infinitely more data now than we did before that collision with the helicopter. And if you think about it, the rules, the regulations, the restrictions, they've all been based on 0 data points. So if you can build an entire structure and framework of rules, regulations and penalties on no data, surely 1 data point is a great place to base the beginning of some common sense and sensibility. Yeah, only 1 data point, but it's a hell of a lot more than the data points they had when they created the rules. I think my phone's ringing. It is, hang on. Always happens. Good afternoon, Bruce speaking. I return you now to your normal programming. Yes. So, I don't know, what do we do with these people now? One really interesting thing that I've noticed, the Civil Aviation Authority here in New Zealand, they publish a magazine called Vector. It's every 2 months they put this magazine out. A fantastic step forward was seen in the latest edition of that magazine. Civil Aviation have said that drones have every bit as much right to use the airspace as manned aircraft. Whoa! I mean, like, breakthrough time. Finally, a regulator has acknowledged that drones have a right to use the airspace. Until now, you've kind of got the impression that the airspace is the domain of manned aircraft and drones are not really even tolerated, that they're second tier. Well, no. Our aviation regulator has said that they have the same right to use the airspace as a manned aircraft, and that's a giant leap forward, because the next watershed that will come, the next turning point which will show that drones are finally, and unmanned aerial aircraft are finally becoming mainstream, is when regulators start changing the regulations that relate to manned aircraft to account for drones. At the moment, it's been the drone operators have all the regulation. Manned aircraft just carry on regardless because nothing has changed for them. But very soon, you'll start seeing changes to the regulations that control manned aircraft. And those changes will be forced on them because of the risk associated with drone operation. I'm not saying because drones are risky, I'm saying that if the airspace below 500 feet is going to be increasingly filled with drones, then the regulations regarding manned aviation have to reflect that. At the moment, you're not supposed to fly below 500 feet except when taking off, landing, or in a designated low-flying area. That's true for most countries. But it's a rule that's widely ignored. I don't know how many people have contacted me and said, I was flying my model aircraft or my drone in my own backyard and a damn plane flew over at 150 feet. What do I do? And I say, well, lodge a complaint. But normally, until now, those complaints have been ignored because the bottom line in regulation has always been that unmanned aircraft must always give way to manned aircraft. So if you're flying your drone in your backyard at 150 feet and a Cessna 172 comes in and hits it, you're going to be in the wrong. Yeah, sure, the guy in the Cessna shouldn't have been below 500, but you should have given way to him. So you're the guy at fault because this is the bias, this is the prejudice against unmanned aircraft and in favour of manned aircraft. The manned aircraft will effectively always be seen to be in the right. Maybe contributory negligence, but the primary fault will be the drone operator, because the drone operator, regardless if he's operating within all the other rules, must always give way to manned aircraft. So until we have something that changes and says, you know, they start enforcing the sub 500 foot rule and enforcing it strongly, then, you know, we're the ones left holding the can if something goes wrong, even if it wasn't really our fault. Because you know, you can imagine you're flying at 100 feet over your own backyard, the plane comes in at 100 feet, hits your drone, you may not have time to even realise the plane's there. If it's coming in, bang, but you're still going to be the one who gets prosecuted. It's just not good enough. But they need to change some of the regulations to take this into account. So there's all sorts of things coming up, but the really worrying thing is that this airspace between 0 and 400 feet used to be pretty worthless. I mean, there was no commercial value to it. There's no point, you know, no one wanted it because you couldn't fly a full-size aircraft or a manned aircraft in that area without breaking the rules. But now that airspace is going to become incredibly valuable because that's where all the drone deliveries and the drone photography, that's where all that's happening. And governments realise, oh, we want to tax anything we can because the more money we have, the more money we can spend and the better we look to the people who don't fly drones. So I expect to see some pretty stiff charges introduced for use of the airspace below 400 or below 500 feet at some time in the future. And they're talking about UTMs, unmanned traffic management systems, and they're going to be very big news. Very big news because just as the airspace above 500 feet is often managed by air traffic control systems, the airspace below 500 feet will also become under management. We'll have authorities, perhaps private companies. This will be probably farmed out to private operators who will then say, you can't fly in our airspace without our permission. And to get our permission, you've got to pay money. And then suddenly the whole thing goes to hell in a handbasket. What? You can't even fly your drone in your backyard because effectively now it becomes controlled airspace and you have to pay a premium to some person sitting in a room somewhere simply because they bid on control of that airspace, they got the money, or they paid that money, now they're going to squeeze it back out of you times 10. Bad things could happen in the future there, but just a little bit, that's just to lighten your day up if you're feeling a little bit melancholy. Yeah, something to look forward to. So that's it. That's my little rant for today. I've sort of drifted off topic, but yeah, I don't believe the airliner crash. And if I do, it's a great thing. It's a really good thing because now there are two, if that's true, there are two cases where drones and manned aircraft have collided and nobody has died. And you notice how quiet the media is about this. You know, the media previously, especially like the Daily Mail, oh, you know, the sky will fall. If a drone comes even too close to an airliner, the sky will fall, people will die, there'll be bodies, corpses littering the streets. And it hasn't happened. So they've kept really quiet. They haven't said, we were wrong, we were wrong. It looks like these drones aren't as dangerous as we thought. No, 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 that doesn't sell newspapers. That doesn't sell eyeballs on websites. No, it doesn't. So they're just keeping quiet. But you can guarantee that if there is a collision and someone does get hurt, man, it'll just fill the papers and fill your media all over the place. At the same time, there have been so many bird strikes recently. Look at this. Look at this here. This was caused by birds, honestly. Now, compare that to the helicopter damage that we saw, little scuff on the rotor blade and a little dent in the door. Compare that to this. I mean, excuse me, I think it's time we banned birds, isn't it? Oh, no, you can't. That's wildlife. No, no, birds and wildlife are far more important than people and their recreational activities. Ah, rubbish. CAA have it right. Drones have every bit as much right to use the airspace as manned aircraft. All that's required is to make sure that they're just manned aircraft up here, drones down here. Little gap. 500 feet, 400 feet. Dun, 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 dun. What can go wrong? If the drone operator goes up there, throw him in jail, kick his ass. You know, really deal to him, punish him in a big way. If the manned aviator comes down here, do the same thing. Don't just say, oh, you know, he was busy doing something else, it's all right, you know, you should have got out of his way. No, no, no. Manned aircraft breach the 500-foot level. They should be every bit as culpable as a drone operator who breaches the 400-foot level. Simple as that. Start making people accountable. Hold them to account. No good having all these rules and laws and regulations if nobody does anything to enforce them. Because pretty much at the moment, that's how it is. Regulators, they don't have many people to do enforcement. I've heard informally that they only really follow up on things where there is a definite risk to personal property. If it's just a technical breach of the regulations, they're not too interested because they've got so much other stuff to do, which is fair enough. But maybe in this new world of drones versus manned aircraft, they're going to have to get tough on the technicalities too. And just to send the message that no, you got away with it this time, but next time you may not be so lucky. So we're going to ping you now so you don't do it again. Maybe that's how it works. I'm not a great fan of over-regulation on things, but if they're going to use that method, if they're going to say, no, we're going to be really tough on enforcement, we're going to enforce even the smallest infringements, then they have to change the regulations to make them fairer. Because at the moment, a lot of the regulations seem to be based on this, well, this could be dangerous, so we're going to outlaw it. But we let discretion, we use the enforcement officer's discretion. So it becomes kind of like saying the speed limit on the roads is 60 miles an hour. Unless we think it's better for you to go faster or slow or whatever. No, no, no. A speed limit's a speed limit. Certainly here in this country, the speed limit is 100 kilometres an hour, 62 miles an hour. If you're caught doing 105 kilometres an hour, you get a ticket. There's no excuse. You cannot justify excess speed. Even if you're overtaking another vehicle and you do 105k, you get pinged. That's the way it is. That's a good law because everybody knows that once your speedo goes to 105, you risk getting a ticket. You can't talk your way out of it. There's no justification. So the same should happen with drone regulations. They should be fair and reasonable, and they should be in place where there is a very real risk to person and property, where they want to. So like having this rule where you can't fly FPV without an observer because you could hit an aeroplane, that's a crap rule. Because if you're flying under trees in a park at 2 feet above the ground, you cannot hit an airplane unless it's parked there. So that's a bad rule. So there has to be, the rules have to be more carefully thought out. They have to be put in things like you must use an observer when flying FPV when it is essential to maintain safety. That little bit on the end there, when essential to maintain safety. That means that's a rule that can always be enforced. If you are flying FPV without an observer in a manner that would therefore represent a threat, so you're flying, 399 feet up in the sky and you're 2 miles away, yeah, you need an observer because otherwise, there could be an aircraft coming right up behind you, go up your jacksie, and it could be a bad day for everyone. But flying in the park, under the trees, when there's no one around, no, you don't need an observer. I don't have an observer when I do that. That is a technical breach of our regulations because the regulations are crap. They don't take into account. At the moment, those regulations rely on people using their common sense, or the enforcement officers using their judgment to say, no, it's a technical breach, but it's not a safety breach. No, regulations shouldn't have that level of vagueness. They should be clearly defined. If I'm flying under a park under the trees in a park, if the aviation authority can prove that I posed a risk to aircraft while I was doing that, then ping me. But if they can't prove that I posed a risk to aircraft, don't bother wasting my time. Simple as that. What do you think? Do you think the regulations, remember, our regulations were created on 0 data points. No data points. No data at all on which to base these regulations. It's all supposition and whatever. Even the scientific studies that were conducted by a number of different independent institutions have been ignored by the regulators. So they've actually been working on really 0 data, negative data. Now we have some data points coming up. They need to revise regulations and make them properly reflect the levels of risk and consequence, or the level of probability and the level of consequence associated with drone operation. That's risk. Risk is the probability times the consequence, or the outcome, or the whatever. So yeah, they need to reevaluate things, because now we've got some numbers coming up. So tune the regulations to the numbers. Don't just say, oh, regulations are in place, we're going to leave them there. It's stupid, it's dumb. Only an idiot would do that. And I'm sure the regulators aren't idiots. Maybe they are in Canada, but most of the world's not too bad. There you go. I've already wrapped up this video 3 times. What am I waffling on about? There you go. Thank you so much for watching. Give the video a thumbs up if you like it. If you don't like it, give it a thumbs up. No, give it a thumbs down. Be honest. Be honest in your criticism. And if you're not a subscriber, subscribe. You'll see lots of crazy stuff on this channel. I have my rants. I fly. My friends fly. Hey, it's just a fun channel. Try and keep it light and entertaining. If you're interested in full-size aviation, model aviation, or drones, you'll find something for you on this channel. Go and have a look through all the old videos. There's heaps of stuff that you might find interesting. In the meantime, thank you for watching. I'll go now.